You know that feeling when you wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep, when you push through your day running on empty, wondering where your energy went? Here's something most people don't know, that fatigue may actually be happening inside your cells. That's why I've been using anti-factor lipids powder from Nutritional Therapeutics for years. I don't go a day without it. It's based on over 20 years of research and a patented process called membrane lipid replacement, which actually repairs the damaged components of your cell membranes, restoring your cell's ability to produce energy the way they did when you were younger. Clinical studies show anti-factor can reduce fatigue by up to 40%. Just 1 or 2 scoops a day. Mix it in a smoothie like I do, sprinkle it on food, and you're giving your body the science of youthful energy. Anti-Factor Lipids Powder comes in 2 convenient sizes. For more information and to order, just call 800-982-9158, 800-982-9158, or go to antifactor.com. That's antifactor.com for Anti-Factor Lipids Powder. Welcome back to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. A couple of guests are talking about psychedelic therapy. Dr. Will Vanderveer and Keith Kurlander are co-authors of a new book, Psychedelic Therapy, a revolutionary approach to restoring your mental health and reclaiming your life. And you know, how I know that this is a big deal is we just had a kid's birthday party at my house. And one of the parents is a guy who is he's a molecular biologist, and he was hired by this investment firm to suss out the probability that certain drugs are going to become, or in certain companies, startup companies, are going to become blockbuster companies. And he says that one of the things he's investigating is this precise arena, is that this is not just, an underground kind of thing. This is actually a proposition that some companies are going to monetize ultimately. They're going to create designer drugs, maybe modeled after some of these drugs, or maybe they're going to mainstream ways to better administer these drugs. It's a happening thing, as you well know.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned someone hired to evaluate the chances of success in the pharmaceutical industry, because last week, I don't know if you saw this, but Eli Lilly went ahead and made a big acquisition of a small company called Atai Beckley, which was based primarily on their phase 2 data for a drug called 5-MeO-DMT that's also a nasal spray.
So it's
Very similar.
another analog. See, that's where the money is. If it's a natural compound extracted from toad venom or toad sweat,
Right.
It's hard to monetize. But if they tweak it and have the patented designer molecule, ka-ching, ka-ching, right?
Yeah, in some cases you don't even need to tweak it. You just develop a way to manufacture it in a lab, and then you have
to synthesize
patent protection around that.
Yeah.
So, so as you said, a lot happening in the space. A lot of new compounds being developed. About 300 compounds in the pipeline right now. Different compounds. Some are being described as non-psychedelic psychedelics. In other words, compounds where the subjective experience has been stripped out, and you might get a similar benefit for depression or PTSD without going through a psychedelic experience. So there's a lot happening right now.
I've heard of some people microdosing. And in fact, this is actually portrayed on a show that is kind of my guilty pleasure late at night. I watch Cape Fear. It's the third iteration of Cape Fear. And, the first one was with Robert Mitchum, and then there was Robert De Niro, and now they have a new villain. And it's super scary because the father of the family starts to do a little microdosing. He's playing around with microdosing, and then somebody spikes the tea with LSD. They're using LSD in this case for microdosing, and the whole family goes on a very bizarre trip. What's up with that?
Yeah. Well, microdosing has become quite popular in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years. A big wave of that happened in Silicon Valley. and some other places, creatives and different things. And people are exploring it. Microdosing is taking a subclinical dose, you could say, of what's being studied, like 1/10 of the dose or even less. So you don't have a psychedelic experience, but people are reporting, self-reporting mostly, results, whether that's alleviating depression or more creativity, things
So
like
you
that.
don't have perceptual distortion. You don't see, have synesthesia and multiple, colors
Yeah.
and shape distortion and visions, hallucinations virtually. With that, it's subtle.
Yeah.
Well,
The,
I think
the
that, yeah.
definition.
Go
Yeah. I
ahead.
mean, we're using when you use the term microdose, for us, that by definition means subperceptual.
Okay.
In other words, you're not having a distortion in your perception.
Okay. And it doesn't pose safety concerns with driving or operating machinery, things like that.
Well, I don't know that I would make that claim. I
Okay.
mean, um,
Because you don't know
y-
necessarily what it constitutes a microdose, especially if it's kind of a gray market, proposition, right?
well, also just because it's sub-perceptual doesn't mean it's not impacting you in
Got
some
it.
way that could affect something. But it's also not highly, it's not highly researched.
Hmm.
We don't have the type of data we have for, these clinical doses. So there's not enough research to say whether the claims that people are making, again, if we had a double-blind placebo study, whether it would hold up or not at scale.
These are
We
so-called
just,
biohackers.
yeah, it's mostly in the biohacking realm. So we just don't know from
Yeah.
like a scientific experiment perspective.
And that's not
And there's,
something that you're so much advocating. You're advocating the use of these in clinical circumstances, research-based, supervised, right?
I mean, we're a continuing medical education institute. Like we just follow the research. So
Okay.
we're teaching what the research says. It's not that we're out here, sh- talking a lot about what happens outside of the research. It's
Hmm.
just, that's I have different opinions about that, but it's more about like, well, what does the research say? And
Yep.
that's what we want to teach providers.
Indeed. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's talk about the different substances. Like there's MDMA, there's ibogaine, there's psilocybin, there's what else? Let's talk about the individual substances, what they do, and what the experience is like.
Sure. Well, why don't we? It's up to you, Ron, how you want to start this. But
Yep.
what comes to mind is starting with where the most data is,
Okay.
and we can work our way down from there.
Sure.
So, MDMA is is a chemical that's made in a lab. It made it all the way through the phase 3 studies with FDA. It was not approved when it went out for approval in August of 2024. And the non-approval was based on nuances in the way the data was collected and pieces of data that were not collected. But the studies on MDMA showed a great degree of efficacy and safety. So the company developing that might have to go through another phase 3 study. It's not clear what their path is to approval. The next thing on the list is psilocybin, which is for depression or treatment-resistant depression. And as I mentioned earlier, Compass Pathways has made it through their phase 3 study. There's another company that's a nonprofit called USONA that is developing psilocybin for major depression, not treatment-resistant depression. And they're just about done with their phase 3 study. So that's PTSD and depression. Then we have less information so far on a handful of other things. One is LSD for generalized anxiety disorder.
Hmm.
They had a kind of a blockbuster phase 2 study. They're now in phase 3. The company is called MindMed. They're expected to be done next year with their phase 3 study. So we may get an indication for anxiety, which would be amazing.
That almost sounds paradoxical because LSD is famed for causing people to have a bad trip and, to feel paranoid.
Yeah.
when they take it, but
only for 12 hours.
Okay, so for 12, so it's almost like
after 12 hours, then you feel better.
Okay, so the suggestion is that it almost like watching a horror movie, it kind of inoculates you against your fears or something.
I mean, not every experience is like that. I
Yeah.
mean, LSD actually, on the experiential level, many experiences are actually
benign.
Sometimes reported as the most beautiful, impactful experiences of a person's life.
Sure.
So there's every one of these medicines, you do come across these very challenging experiences that can happen.
Okay.
In some ways, probably the one that's the least likely to produce that, but can still happen, is MDMA. Mm-hmm. It's a very different mechanism and experience than many of these other medicines we're talking about. So people often talk about it as like it's kind of a softer psychedelic as a first experience.
So keep going, Dr. Will. There's Ibogaine.
Right. And then Ibogaine is very interesting. It's a derivative of a West African shrub called iboga, and Ibogaine is the chemical.
I thought it was from the toads. That's something else?
That's 5-MeO DMT.
Okay.
And we just finished talking about Eli Lilly buying the company that developed 5-MeO DMT nasal spray for depression.
Wow.
Ibogaine is, as Keith mentioned, not very well researched yet, but it has gained a lot of popular press, I think mostly on the heels of many veterans going to Mexico and having experiences with Ibogaine that helped them heal.
And they do that with a traditional healer, a brujo or bruja.
No. In general, these are happening in medical clinics in Mexico.
Okay. I thought it was almost, like you go to find some guy in the jungle, with shamanic incantations and things like that.
Right. Well, you could go to West Africa and work with Gabon. In Gabon, there are traditional healers who work with iboga, the plant. But these Ibogaine clinics tend to offer medical supervision because Ibogaine comes with a kind of a nasty quirk about it, which is that it can cause heart arrhythmias, and there have been a few deaths from Ibogaine.
Okay.
So it's really important to have good cardiac evaluation and monitoring during Ibogaine treatment. Mm-hmm. But if you have that, then you can reduce the risk substantially. But the issue with Ibogaine is that we don't have a lot of medical research yet, but it's on the way because of these recent approvals of allocations of massive amounts of money to support Ibogaine research.
Mm-hmm. There's ayahuasca, and that's a more traditional herb. It's not a synthetic substance.
If you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Ayahuasca was used in different places in Central and South America, sometimes in Mexico, but it's a combination of plants. But the main active psychedelic ingredient is DMT in ayahuasca. And it's typically administered in a ceremonial setting. Mm-hmm. If you go down to these different places in Central or South America or wherever it's being administered, usually there's a shaman involved, and
it's like a vision quest kind of situation.
Right.
Yeah. There's, it's usually done in groups. There's not a lot of processing intellectually usually. It's very much like you're going to have this experience in a group and we're all in silence and that kind of thing. Typically, I mean, there's different ways people are doing this, and so it's been going on though. Ayahuasca has been used for at least many hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. But there's definitely been going on for many hundreds of years in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. So that's been going on. It's not a heavily researched substance. It's an organic. Right now it's just an raw organic substance that people take, and there's been some qualitative studies there and things like that. So more to see with ayahuasca, but mostly right now people are using it for spiritual reasons.
Mm-hmm. Anything on peyote?
Yes. So peyote is a cactus that grows in Mexico and parts of Texas. It is endangered, so there isn't a lot of it around. Its habitat is shrunken, but it is the sacred medicine of the Native American Church, and there are many North American Native American groups, tribes that have used it for hundreds or thousands of years.
So they get legal dispensation on reservations to utilize it, whether it's a
Right.
scheduled item outside of a reservation. Traditional use is sanctioned.
Yeah, it's sanctioned more than just on reservations. If you are a member of the Native American Church, then you have religious protection to use peyote in a religious ceremony. So that doesn't cover recreational use or
Yeah,
any use outside of that setting.
indeed. And mushrooms, is that a different category? Or is that
Mushrooms are typically referring to the psilocybin.
psilocybin is the compound?
Typically, it's psilocybin. There are some other mushrooms out there that have some other compounds, but the one that most people are familiar with, the one that is most relevant to psychedelic therapy, is psilocybin. So at the state level, Colorado and Oregon, the state measures have passed the use of these mushrooms through a legalized protocol, and that's like the actual mushroom. Or even like maybe a tincture was extracted. However, in research, we're talking about molecules that are being developed that are psilocybin, apparently. And that's what's being researched. They're synthetic, though.
Yep.
We're not like, mashing up a mushroom and putting
Right.
it in a pill.
Yep.
And so psilocybin is a very, that's what's really up, because it will likely become the first psychedelic therapy, that's really intact. Ketamine's been around a while, so psilocybin will likely be the first one to pass through the FDA, which is, we're hoping to see Compass get an approval, hopefully, and maybe even this year.
Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors and give them an opportunity to share an important message with you.
Kids don't just bring home homework, they bring home germs. And those germs don't just stay with them, they spread to the whole household. That's why Clear Nasal Spray was created by a practicing physician to give parents and grandparents peace of mind. You may not think about it, but your nose is filtering out a semi-truck full of air every single day. Clear isn't just another spray. It creates an additional layer of protection in your nose that blocks bacteria and viruses before they can even take hold. Yes, even that virus. Supporting your body's defenses right where germs first try to enter. Clear is a hygiene product recommended for daily use, drug-free, non-drowsy, and safe for all ages. Just a quick spray in the morning and evening helps you cleanse your nose. Don't just hope for protection, create it. Get Clear Nasal Spray, your daily defense. Clear Nasal Spray is available at retailers nationwide and online. Check out Xlear.com for our special offers. That's Xlear.com.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting our sponsors. They're what make intelligent medicine a continuing free resource to you. And now back to today's guest, Dr. Will Vanderveer and Keith Kurlander. So what's a session like? Maybe it differs from substance to substance, but say a person who's got, refractory depression, they haven't responded to talk therapy, they haven't responded even to, sometimes they administer electroshock therapy, and, they're stuck. Drugs don't work. And so they're willing to undertake a trial of therapy with one or another of these medications. So what does that entail?
Well, the process begins with preparation. So it's important to mention that, because it's really important to answer all the questions, have a really good conversation about informed consent, make sure people are prepared, make sure there isn't anything that would make the journey more dangerous for that individual, to understand what medication interactions could occur for them, for example, and to set intentions for the session. So there are many aspects to adequate preparation. And then when you go into the dosing session, Depending on the medicine, we mentioned a range here from LSD being about 12 hours. Ketamine treatments tend to be much shorter, an hour or two, typically. So it's really different in terms of the length of the experience. But as far as having a psychedelic experience, and I know people listening to this, some people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But there, you can have any kind of psychedelic experience with any of these medicines. So you could have a euphoric experience. You could feel like oneness with the universe. You could have a mystical experience, top five experience of your life, or you could also have a really scary and difficult experience where you feel like you have gone to hell for, however long. So you can't really predict, not even from one person to another, but from one experience to another, what kind of experience you're going to encounter on these medicines. And that's why we feel it's so important to have a trained professional with you to help you navigate the spaces.
What does that entail? The training to become that kind of the training, education, accreditation, experience, etc.
There's no unified body that is currently saying this is what you need in order to practice therapy. There's been a bunch of people who have attempted to do that. That hasn't happened. Recently, the FDA, it wasn't the FDA, but some part of the Health Services Administration or somewhere, they actually made a request for information about what should psychedelic therapy training look like. Mm-hmm. That just came out. So
it would seem like some standardization would be desirable, though, right?
Yeah, but it's like who's going to implement that? So there's still a lot of questions about will there just be guidelines as we keep progressing in the field? What will happen? Will pharmaceutical companies create their own rules, which is likely around, okay, if you're going to use our product, you got to check this box. And that's probably initially how it'll start. But with all of that said, we see everywhere from like, okay, if you want to be a full psychedelic therapy provider, like you really are able to provide the counseling, understand the process from A to Z. It's typically a multi-month training that it sets you up for that. Our current training's 4 months. It's 150 hours. But there's also lots of models out there. A lot of the research is not studying therapy with these medicines, and they're doing, much lighter versions of that. The LSD study is not even having a psychedelic therapy person at all in the study. It's really a person that's almost like a medical assistant, watching for safety. And a lot of, we could go around and around about, well, is that great or not? But so I think there's a wide range of what this could look like. We advocate for a well-trained team to make the most out of the experience so that the person will most likely not feel traumatized, will feel that something very meaningful happened for them, will feel safe and supported.
So what does a good facilitator do with someone who is under the influence of these drugs?
Well, one of the first things you do is you talk a lot less than you would in ordinary mental health treatment. When you're on a psychedelic medicine, it oftentimes is really hard to have a conversation. So a facilitator needs to understand that well and not talk too much. We have an acronym in our training called WAIT, W-A-I-T, which means why am I talking? So we want our facilitators to think about that. You want to make sure that you're prioritizing the person's internal experience and protecting that as much as possible from outside interference, including what you might do or say. So it's a much more of a minimal approach. You might use music to facilitate the journey to help people move through experiences they're having. But you don't want to push them toward any particular memory or any particular content from their history. So you don't want to put on a playlist of songs that they might have listened to in high school when they went through
Mhm.
that breakup in high school.
And you don't say,
Um,
let's visualize you as a 6-year-old and remember your
that's
mother and
right.
father and that beating you once got at the picnic. And, you're not
Right.
doing that, right? You're not doing like a
That's
sort of
right.
the Freudian on the couch kind of trauma excavation, are you?
It's probably more closest to Rogerian therapy, client-centered work,
Hmm.
where you're really taking the client's lead.
Okay.
More in the humanistic traditions of therapy. I would say it's probably closest to that, but there's also a concept of kind of innate healing within oneself in psychedelic therapy, that there is something inside of a person that knows what to do when and that the medicine often helps people turn that on. And I think that there's some real truth to that, that, embedded in our own psychology and our psyches is a evolutionary drive toward being well, just like the body has
Hmm.
that in every other system. So I don't think the psyche is any different. It's just the psyche gets really clouded. And so there is something, I think, to be said that that mechanism gets turned on. And it's like, can you follow that as the therapist?
What about the aftermath of the therapy? It would seem that that would be a productive time to sort of consolidate the gains, maybe journal, maybe retrieve some insights. That I think would be part of it. It's not just you're one and done, like, okay, see you, go home, we're done.
Right. Well, that's where this window of neuroplasticity is so important to take advantage of. And it can last, from a few days to a few weeks, depending on what medicine you're working with, how often you're doing it. But there is it's like clay that has been moisturized where it's softer now, and you can remodel your sense of self, your core beliefs, which are critical to mental health, and they tend to operate on this unconscious level where they're driving emotions and thoughts and behaviors without our being aware of how they're doing that. So that is a distinct advantage of the psychedelic experience, is that you pop the hood and you can see these subconscious beliefs and how they operate and how they control your life. And then in the integration with this critical learning period, this neuroplastic period, you can do the work of turning that state change into a trait change, which is what the healing is all about.
So, what are obstacles to the overall psychiatric community taking this up? Making referrals to your institute or to practitioners with perhaps some of their more challenging or stuck patients.
I mean, one thing is the stigma surrounding psychedelics and any Schedule One substance. Oh, it's a Schedule One substance. It has no medical, validity to it. Like, that's it. And until we have like an FDA approval, that's just how I'm going to think about it. And then when I have an FDA approval, it's going to take me a long time to get on board because I had all this belief for all these years. So there's that just critical issue, which is, the research has been going on. It's like imagine if antidepressants came out in the 80s, but you had this whole history of recreational use or something prior to that.
Right.
It would take a little while to be like wrap your head around like, oh, this is something else.
Yeah.
This is research and it's fresh and it's new and it's compelling. And so there's just that. I'd say that's like a major factor. What else would you say, Will?
Well, I was going to go in a different direction and say that because there is so much treatment failure and treatment resistance in psychiatry, the students that sign up for our courses are psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners and PAs and so on, therapists who recognize that the tools that they have available are not adequate for many people. So I think giving the practitioner community better, more effective tools, tools that require a pharmaceutical intervention in a very time limited way. We're talking about 1 exposure, 2 exposures, 3 exposures to a drug, and then you're done. You're not going to do anymore. it's a very different proposition for patients who have been dealing with daily medications that reduce symptoms but don't actually take care of the root cause. So,
do you ever have the opportunity to platform some of this information at conventional psychiatric conferences? Whatever the APA or the American Psychiatric Association or things like that, or are you kind of relegated to outlaw status?
I wouldn't say it's outlaw status anymore. Everybody's listening right now. I mean, there's still obviously plenty of skeptics and plenty of people that still have these old ideas, but I mean, it's obviously in New York Times every day, and everyone's paying attention, and healthcare systems are like, how do we get ready? And so I think we're in a different day, but yeah, when we were at the APA 6 years ago, our booth wasn't visited very often in that setting. But now we're in a different moment. So I think that we're going to see a lot of change here really quickly.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of an interesting initiative from HHS under RFK Jr. is a little more open-minded towards these things, and Trump is behind it because, it sounds like, it's good military applications. That's, I think, figures prominently in his outlook. And so things may start to move. And also with the monetization, that's important, and commercialization of some of these therapies, because great therapies don't sometimes arrive on the scene without a little bit of impetus from startups and IPOs and pharmaceutical firms buying smaller, innovative companies to enhance their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think my personal opinion about the Eli Lilly price for Tyvekly, which was $2.8 billion with another million if they meet their benchmarks in phase 3, is a great bargain for Eli Lilly because they're getting 5-MeO-DMT, which looks like it's a viable competitor for Spravato. And Spravato is tracking this
That's
year.
the ketamine, the esketamine.
Yes.
Yeah. That's inhaled
right.
ketamine, where you go to a clinic, you can't just, get it, mail order it and, snort it at home.
That's right. And we also think that the 5-MeO-DMT product will also be in clinic application, intranasal. So very similar product. And Spravato is tracking to generate $2 billion for Johnson & Johnson this year in 2026 alone. So, and it'll be on patent for a little while. So, and then there's also another compound under development by Tyvekly that Lilly's also getting access to for this price tag. So I think we're going to see a lot of these kinds of transactions happening. That was the third one in the space where a big pharmaceutical bought a smaller pharmaceutical developing these compounds. So it's pretty dynamic right now.
Yeah, I want to just close by saying that I don't believe you guys are one-note Charlies when it comes to psychedelic therapies. I think you believe in an all-of-the-above approach, incorporating lifestyle, diet, nutrition, sleep optimization, all these factors that may figure in, even, judicious use of certain supplements. People may have issues around deficiencies, iron deficiency, maybe a B12 deficiency, et cetera. Or alternatively, looking at the effect of, some other natural modalities.
Yeah, I mean that was when we founded the company together in 2018. We started with the premise of, hey, how do we teach providers a broader framework of the causes of what mental health conditions are going on out there?
Hormonal causes, often undetected.
Yeah. And so that is embedded in our culture. And so we see psychedelic therapy as one of the tools in that list of what you just said. It's not sort of a be all end all. You're done with your healing, great. Like it's a tool for wellness. And there are there's many things we have to look at in the body to, keep refining.
Indeed.
This,
Well, I have to commend you guys for handling a rather touchy subject in a very responsible way, because, I think that's the way to go. When you talk about, I think a lot of people raise their hackles when you start talking about psychedelics, and it sounds trendy and it sounds weird. But, by just adhering to the research and, talking responsibly about this subject, I think we can really make some progress towards optimizing mental health. And it's just a new avenue that we need to explore, putting aside some of our prejudices.
Great.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And the book is entitled, once again, Psychedelic Therapy, a revolutionary approach to restoring your mental health and reclaiming your life. And that book is out now and available. And also your podcast, you're going to resume it?
Maybe.
Okay. But
we're on hold right now, but there's plenty
archived.
of episodes
it's
to
archived.
go check it out. Yeah.
It's archived, yeah.
Okay, great. It's the Higher Practice Podcast. Fantastic.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Great. Maybe, there'll be some future developments on this, and maybe we can reprise this, because it's kind of a fast-moving area, and I think we're going to see some real exciting developments in the next couple of years. So thanks very much for joining us, Dr. Will Vanderveer and Keith Kurlander. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app, and get new episodes automatically downloaded every weekday. And please give us a rating and review. It truly helps new people discover intelligent medicine. The Intelligent Medicine Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, please visit drhoffman.com and discover everything Intelligent Medicine has to offer, including frequently updated, unbiased health news and fully vetted product and supplement recommendations. You're listening to Intelligent Medicine, a resource to help you take control of your health. We offer a balanced, objective analysis of all your health, wellness, and aging options, both conventional and alternative. Now you can take your engagement to the next level by joining FullScript. FullScript is my online dispensing platform that only offers curated, professional-grade supplement brands that I know and trust. Never counterfeit or expired, always stored and shipped correctly. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com for more information and to start your free FullScript account. Buying through FullScript offers fast, free shipping, optional refill reminders, a mobile-friendly site. It's safe, secure, and HIPAA compliant, and offers world-class support. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com. You'll get access to the supplements and features you need to help you achieve your wellness goals, including my custom targeted protocols that combine the products I recommend to address specific needs: heart health, immune support, and much more. It's all at drhoffmanstore.com. drhoffmanstore.com.